Okay. So Carolyn, I'm going to, tonight Carolyn's going to talk to us about what we need to get started with canning, best sterilization techniques, books that she uses, and also, other ways to store food. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Carolyn.
Well, before I even start canning, I have a little prayer and talk to the Lord about it, because I want my canning not to hurt anybody, because you can get food poisoning if things aren't processed correctly. So let's just take a little minute here and we'll just ask the Lord to be with us now as we go into this session.
Amen.
And so, Lord, we just ask that you will be with us and bless each person that is listening here and who has the desire to eat proper and to be able to process the food in the way it should be done. So I ask you will give us wisdom and patience and understanding, and that thy spirit will lead us. And in thy name, amen.
Amen.
Well, I wanted to know, has anybody ever canned before or froze their food? Got it out of the farmer's market fresh or out of your garden to start processing?
So Brett, is that a yes? All right.
I haven't canned before, but I've frozen food before, so.
Yeah, I was saying I froze before. I never canned before, but I've frozen like spinach and stuff like that. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay, because I do freeze most of my blueberries and strawberries and a lot of my fruit. It is a faster process than canning it. And it just depends on how much time. If you work, you've got to realize that when you come home from work, and if you want to can, you're going to have a number of hours, because I have come home from work and after the family's dinner, started my processing, and it could take me till about 2 a.m. to get done. Because once you start, you've got to follow it through. And I like to go out to the garden and here's some green beans here that I put up. And I will pick the green beans. Say I want to do 7 quarts of green beans. And the reason I would do 7 quarts is because that's how many will fit in my pressure cooker or my boiling water bath. And I'll show you those two. But it takes time to bring them in. You've already picked them. You're bringing them in. You're going to wash them in your strainer. And then you're going to clip the ends off. And then you're either going to leave it whole or you're going to break them up. And I broke mine up because that's how my mom had me do it. And so that process, I look here in my book. I have this little book here. I'll get it. This little book here I've had for many years. And to do green beans, string beans, like I was talking about, it will take me 25 minutes in my pressure cooker. That's after the pressure got up to 10 pounds of pressure. And once it gets up to 10 pounds of pressure, you've got to keep it there for 25 minutes. You don't want it to go too far over, because pressure cookers can explode. So I never leave my pressure cooker when I'm using it. I stay real close to it. Now, if I want to water bath that, same thing, it can take me 3 hours. Once the water starts boiling is when you start timing. So green beans, I always pressure cooker them because it takes less time. But it does have a little timetable in here for everything about vegetables and fruits. And fruits are faster to do. Still is 10-pound pressure. But anyway, this is one of my favorite little books, and I do not know where I came by this. But another favorite book is this one here. And Tanya found it online.
Yep, Canning by Sue and Bill Deeming. I'm going to type it in the chat.
And on this, can I keep talking?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
And in this book, mine's falling apart because I've used it so much. Here it talks about summer squash, and it gives you in detail, step by step, after you get it, on how to process it to get it ready to go into canning. And I have made soup. My little book here, it's about had it here, but I want to show you what I need before I even start. I need my little thing here that I put over my jars like this, so I can keep the top of my jars clean. And I put my green beans, fruit, whatever it is, and I only go up to right about here, because during the process it will swell up, but then as it starts to cool off, it will fall back down. But you do need that space, just like when you freeze something, you need a space to give it time to grow and to come back. But this is my little thing I use. And the other thing is, you're definitely going to need a knife, and you're going to need a cutting, some type of a cutting board, and you're going to need some towels, and I use this to wipe off my top like this after I put the food in it, to put my ring on the top of it, and then twirl it, the lid down on it. And this is what I'm going to use to put them in the hot water, or to take them out of the hot water. And I always have my favorite knife, and I use something like this. This is just my favorite one. That, see, it has little holes in it, and if I'm wanting just to go in to pick up something, I can do it with this, and the water can drain out. And then I wanted to show you the lids here. You can buy lids like this with the ring if you don't have any already. Put that there. And I can't express too much about, if you do not have a dishwasher to put this stuff in, your jars, 7 jars for each load. And I usually, if I'm going to do 2 loads, instead of putting 14 jars in, I'm going to put some extras in, because sometimes jars, after they've been used for so long, may crack. Lots of times the bottom may just go out, and you can hear it doing that, but you just let the process go on and clean it up after it's, the rest of them are done. And you want to make sure as you go around the lid that it is smooth, there's no chips, there's no breaks in it. If there is, you can't use it, because this has to seal very tightly, and then you put your ring. But you're also going to sterilize these in your dishwasher. Now, many places I have worked, I don't have a dishwasher. So what I did is I got a pan of hot sudsy water and bleach, and I would wash my jars, even though I'd washed them before I put them away after, you know, emptying the food out of them. So you wash them really good, and then you rinse them good, and then I put them, fill them full of water, and I put them in my boiler here. I will move this chair out of the way, into this one. This is the boiler that I use to put them in. And as I said, it will hold 7, and it goes like this.
Where did you buy this from, Carolyn?
Oh, you can get this just about at Walmart, any place. And I've had this for so long, I have no idea.
Can I mention one thing about
Okay.
it? So with a bag, I've seen them sold at a Goodwill. So you can possibly get them at Goodwill as well. Just make sure there's no cracks in it.
Yeah, you can find them probably at yard sales too. But anyway, once I get it loaded, now remember, I don't have anything in my jars but water. And when I put them down in here, because see, I didn't have a dishwasher, and I want this to be sterile. And so then I fill this full of water, and I make sure the water covers over the top of every jar in here. And I let it come to a good long boil. Now, while this thing's doing that, I'm processing whatever it is I'm going to can. If it's the green beans, I'm doing them. If it's something else, I'm doing that. And then after it is boiled for a while, I just turn the water off. And in another pan, I have put my lids. And I always do 2 extra lid and ring, just in case again, I drop it. And I have a little tweezer, which I did not bring in here, that I pick them up with. Or thinking, when I'm ready, bring these out and fill them, I have a pan that I dump some of this hot water in because I want the jars to stay hot. Now, what I'm putting in it isn't hot, but the jars are hot. And if it's green beans, then I'm going to use this pressure cooker here to do my green beans, because I do not want to boil them for, well, it says 3 hours, but I have to bring this thing up to a boil, which could take over a half hour to do. So you're looking at maybe 3.5 hours, where this one, the gauge here, there's a little notch right here. And it's 10-pound pressure for 25 minutes to do my green beans, is what the book said. So it's going to get up here to 10. Now that's going to take a while to do. And once it hits the 10, then I time my 25 minutes on here. And this is my little steam release. But once I get everything in, I make sure this is down so that the steam will stay in. You have a little rubber release thing back here, and it will have a little bit of steam coming around it. But after a while, it will quit steaming. But this has a little shelf in it like this that the jars are going to sit on. I don't know, can you see inside of here?
I cannot lift it.
Okay, it's heavy.
Oh, wow, it is heavy.
Yeah,
So this is what it looks like.
yeah, inside. Yeah, and these, you can buy them too at Goodwill or someplace like that. But if you're going to make sure you have your dial checked to make sure it's working correctly. My husband would take it out to the shop and he would make sure. But there is the exchange, agriculture exchange, if you have a college nearby or
Oh.
something that has that.
Oh, she had a quick, my cousin, sorry.
Okay,
She says, can you put bottles in the oven to disinfect after they are washed?
I have never done that, but if you are, I can't answer that because I've never done it, but I don't know why not. You'd have to leave it in there for a period of time, and I don't know how that would react. Because I've just done it this way. But that's something you could look into. But after all my jars are in it, this, you have to have at least, I think it is 2 inches of water. I have my canner, and every canner that you buy new comes with a book that tells you how to do it on like this one here. See on what it says about string green beans. It's got 10-pound pressure, 25 minutes across. So it's the same as in my little book. And they don't have anywhere in this book, of course, about the boiling water, because this is a pressure cooker book. But it also has recipes in the back on how to do vegetables and fish and poultry. And, you know, you can probably Google it, go online on how long the canned foods that you buy in the store will last. I know they say tuna can last up to 4 years. But I'm a vegetarian, so I just don't do any of that. But anyway, once I get the cans in, then I take my little knobs here and do this. Now, I used to have a canner that you would twist on and off, and by getting older, it was harder for me to twist it off, so I went to this kind because it's so much easier for me to screw it down than to try to twist it. Is there any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay, well, I wanted to show you, I'm going to set this to the side here, about grape juice. This is my juicer, and this is one of the nicer ones. I will just, see, I got this ready to go to bed during the winter months. But you'll see I have a hose. I had got some tubing and cut it off and put it on here. And for winter, for storage, I put a little towel, a little paper towel in the end to keep bugs out of it. But when you are doing the process, I have this little thing here that I use to put on the handle. And when I am putting it in the jars, I use this to clamp it off like that. If you can see it, yeah. I clamp it off like this. Can you see that?
Can you all see that? Can you see the spout with the, she has a forceps on the spout for the grape juice canning, grape juice canner?
No, this is just a grape, what you're doing is you are steaming the grape juice.
Okay.
It's a steamer. Now, some people leave the grapes on the vine. I don't like the taste of that. I want just the juice. And it is time consuming to take every little grape off of the vine and put it in here. And I put it up as far as I can. And then when it steams, because that's going to go over this like this, and the juice falls in here around this little thing. And then this hole right here that goes to this port is, I open it up and it goes into the jars. And probably only about 3 quart jars will come out of this, depending on your grapes or the season. Last year was an awesome year for grapes.
Carolyn, can you remind me what the name of this is called again, the grape juicer?
Well, it can be for apples too. It can be
Oh.
anything you want to, any juice that you want to make, because it's going to steam the juice out of the item. I usually use just grapes. I could use berries, blackberries and stuff. But I would probably, don't do it that way. I usually use my colander here.
She has a nice colander.
It's an old colander, but what I use this thing for is tomatoes. You put tomatoes on the stove and you heat them up and the skin starts to break away. You got a choice. You can put them in here and turn this. I'm tightening my little thing up on the back. And then I would throw the peels away, and then I would have the pulp underneath. Or I can take my hands, after I wash them, of course, and just take it and sort of squeeze the tomato out of the skin to put in there.
Mhm.
Or put it in my Vitamixer blender and can it. Now here is some stuff that's called chili sauce that was made in 2000, but has other spices in it that we can use when we make chili. And I have made soups and stuff.
Pardon me, Carolyn, you said that was made in 2000? Like literally?
2020 is when this was made.
Okay.
2020.
How long can you keep canned foods for?
As long as they look good and still sealed. I have
Okay.
friends that have it for 10 years. It just depends on what it is. I put in my food in my pantry on the right. Anything I've just made goes on the right. The rest is pushed down, and that's, I always pull from the left to use. That way, what I've just made is on the right. What has been made is on the left, and I'm constantly rotating my stock, and I know what year something's been made. But yeah, this is still good. It's sealed nice, and you can see with your fingernail, you know, won't come up, so it's still sealed and it looks good. And so it will be good.
Carolyn, you were telling me the other day that as long as it's sealed well, you can remove the rings and use it
Yes.
for another canning session.
Yeah, that's what I did here with my applesauce. I made this applesauce last year. And I took the ring off because I needed my ring for other things, but it's still sealed. Once the stuff is done and I take it out with my little thing, remember it's very hot. I usually take it out of the pressure cooker and hold it like this. And I take it to a cool place in the kitchen. And I have some thick towels and I sit this on the towels. I don't want it in a draft. I don't want any air to get blowing on it or anything. And as through the night or day, whenever you've done this, you'll hear these lids poppity pop, pop. And that means they are really sealing good. And the rings are still on them at that point. Well, the next day I may write the date like I did here on it. And I also check it and I wash it down and let it dry. And then I put it in my pantry. And that way, now this one looks a little bit different. I don't know if you can see it than this one. See, they don't look the same, but they're both applesauce.
This one's darker in color, if y'all can see it, like a browner.
I put cinnamon. I put cinnamon in this one. Because some of my family likes cinnamon in their applesauce. And it's just apples. The peelings I had taken off, and so it's just apples. But this one, what I did is I cooked down the apples a little bit and threw them in the blender, peelings and all. And it's hot, and I put it in the jar. And it just has a little bit of different taste, but it has everything that's here. The only thing I took out of this was the middle part where the seed was. So the peelings are here, and I figured it might be healthier because I got the peelings as well as the apple part too. But anyway, you can experiment any way you want on it. As I had told Tanya, I go through the neighborhood. I got certain neighbors that have plum trees. And you know, they're very wasteful. They won't pick their plums. So I say, if you will let me pick plums, I will give you some. So I pick plums and then I can them. And I also have dehydrate them in my little food dehydrator here. And kids really like things done in this.
What brand is that dehydrator?
Here's the little book. Yeah.
I'll write it down.
It has all these different layers. Let me show you here. Oops. Each one has a little rack like this in it. And what you're going to do is you'll just lay the fruit on here like my plums. I laid them on here to dry them. I've done tomatoes. You've had recipes that maybe ask for dried tomatoes. Some bread recipes do. Well, you can do your tomatoes here too. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have about 6 different little shelvings here like that. And I just put this, plug it in, follow the directions that's in the book. And they have even herbs that you can dry, like the basil and chive and the dill. Do your own. And asparagus. Anything you want to dry, you can do in here. And then when it's done, I just let it completely cool. before I put it in jars. And again, I just seal them. I don't run them through any of this process because I don't have to. They're dry. And that way, if I need some parsley that's dry, I just open up my jar and use it.
Good question, Carolyn. With canning, do you use salt to can? And if so, is there a special salt that you use?
Yes, I have salt. It's canning and pickling salt. Now, I have had this salt for quite a while, probably at least 3 years, but it's still good. It's still got its salty flavor. I keep it sealed well. And when I do use it, like green beans, I think it asks for maybe a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons or something for a little pint, or maybe a tablespoon for a quart. But sometimes I use less because I don't use a whole lot of salt, but you're using the salt to help doing the process of the item. But yeah, you can't use table salt. You got to use some canning salt. And you can find this probably at Walmart or any place where they have a canning section. And I'll tell you, if you go to hunting stores, sports stores, they have canning stuff there too. We were having a very hard time last year finding lids like these. These are wide mouth lids, and I like wide mouth for certain things, but I also like the regular smaller ones for applesauce, juice. And so I have several different kinds of jars. So I couldn't find either one anywhere until I went up north in the state, and I found a whole case of 25 of these. Cost me almost $100 for that little case because they're hard to get, but I bought them all. And my brother in Michigan, I told him that I was having a hard time finding lids. Well, they went looking for lids, and they too were having a hard time, but they went to visit up by Lansing, Michigan, and found lots of lids, and they did the same that I did. They just bought everything. So I told him I was having a hard time getting my large lids. They were having a hard time getting the small lids. So he shipped me about 10 of these little boxes of large, wide mouth lids. And I, in return, sent him the small ones, the same amount. So we both had enough. So whenever I go into a store and they have these lids, I buy them. I don't need them now, but they are very hard to find. And you definitely do not want to use the ones from China. My friend Leota and her husband ordered some online from China, and the lid, I call it like a wiffle, went across a little wave. In here, it wasn't flat like it should be. It sort of wiffled up, and all of that she had to reprocess. But so they're also on the lookout for lids. So they aren't very easy to find, at least lately they haven't been. Is there any questions?
Let's see. There's a couple of questions. I have one. She said, can the lids be reused?
I have a friend that she does reuse her lids if it's not too deep. I could get one that's been used. I don't know if you will be able to see it, but Tanya will. So
You
excuse
say
me.
too deep, but so you'll tell us when she comes
Yeah.
back.
See here.
Just want to say hi to Shay Marie Posey for just joining us. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're glad you're here. So we're right now, for those, since Shay just joined us, Carolyn was just talking to us about the techniques that she uses for canning. We're actually somewhere near halfway through the midpoint of this talk, but we're actually recording this session, so we'll be posted on our Facebook page.
Okay, I'm going to show you a lid. Oh, here's one. a lid that has not ever been used. And you can see, I don't know if you can see on there how smooth it is across. Now,
Really nice and smooth.
Yeah. now see this one, it has like a little ridge in it here, a little trough.
So there's a nice little ridge or trough or indentation around the
Yeah.
outer portion of the
And
ring.
it's smooth, yeah. And the other one
I
is
see.
indented where it has the imprint of the glass lid on it like that when it got processed and just like the whoop came across. So I do not use mine again, but I do know people that do. And when they do, those jars are put right in the front and they use them first and they don't keep them too long because they can lose their strength on the lid and let bacteria in and stuff. And I figure if I'm going to all this process, I'm not going to reuse it. But yes, people do it.
Is there a best brand to use for the canning?
I use Ball. I use these two right here.
So I'm gonna write this in the chat. The two brands that is another question coming in. The two best lid brands are Kerr and Ball.
And I have used others, but I haven't always had good luck with all of the lids. Maybe one or two in the box of 12 will do what I said and it wouldn't seal proper. So I would either put that jar in the refrigerator and use it right away or process it again. And I don't really like processing them twice because of the heat that it was under the first time. But it can be done.
Another question that's asked, it's by Karen, is how do we know if the lids are sealed properly to not and not open to bacterial growth?
Okay, here's one I've taken the ring off of. And when I am ready to put these away and write the date on them, I always take my fingernail and put it underneath the lid and pull up as hard
can't
as I
see it.
can. Oh, yeah, maybe you can.
So basically, yeah. So I'll just.
Yeah, and if it comes up, then it's not sealed, but it's,
So it's nice and tightly sealed. I
yeah,
can't lift it up with my nails at all.
yeah, see, and I know this is good. And so that's one way I do it, is just make sure. And when I want to open this, I just get my little bottle opener, you know, like you would open a bottle of pop with, and put it under here and pop it. Some people use a knife to pull it up, but you would have to use something. But this one I just did last summer. So this is still going to be good for several more years.
Also, for the sterilization technique, Carolyn, you were saying the other day that you want to make sure you don't have any speckles in your jar. Anything
Yeah.
stuck on the inside.
Now, that's true. When you wash it, you want to make sure, I always hold it up to the light to make absolutely sure there's no particle of the food that was in here before. Because if there is, and that little piece flakes off, underneath it, it isn't sterile. It's not clean. It's for my job, when I did work, I worked in a hospital and sterilization, and I did all the sterilizing for the hospital, made up the surgery packs and stuff. And that's one thing I always stress to the people that I was working with, is to make absolutely sure there's no spots left on anything. Because if so, when that flakes off underneath, it is not sterile.
And also I wanted to, you were mentioning that, well, did you prefer to use pressure canning with the string beans?
Yes, and just about every little book I have found does that.
I think you mentioned the other day something about preventing bacteria from
Yeah,
growing on them or something.
Well, that's another thing. You can do the green beans, probably in water bath. Oh, let me see about my little book here, if I can find it. I've got all these others here. But the green beans, people have been known to get poisoned by green beans. Here they do have that you can do green beans for 3 hours in water bath. So I think that's after you have cooked some of your green beans on top of the stove and then put them in the jar. And then they got raw green beans where it says to not do the water bath, that they're just raw green beans that you're putting in the jars. And I always use the raw going in. And I can't express too much. When you're canning, get the very best food that you can. None that has spots on it that when I mean spots, I mean like it's starting to decay. You know, it's got sort of a, when you put your thumb on it, your finger sort of goes in. You want good, fresh fruit. I know when we, like I said, when we did green beans, we picked them and brought them in and processed them as quickly as possible. Corn, the same way. My husband and I always process corn outside on our camp stove in our pressure cooker because you're going to blanch your corn after you take it out of the shell, and then you're going to put it in ice water. And then you take it out and cut it off the cob and put it in the jars. And whole kernel corn, it says, it will take 10-pound pressure, 85 minutes. Or in a bath, it takes over 3.5 hours to do the corn. And so you just follow your little guide list here, and it will tell you what to do. But just remember, when it says it's going to take 3 hours, first, this thing's got to get up to a boil. And once it gets to a boil, you've got to keep it at that boiling point for 3 hours.
And one last thing I remember you mentioning with the pressure canner, that people should be careful of watching the pressure.
Yes. You don't want it to get too high above the 10 or the 15, whatever the poundage is, because pressure cookers, if people walk away and they go, then they can move very fast. It can explode.
So that's all I have. I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add, Carolyn, to your this session that this amazing session that you're giving us right now.
Well, I love canning, and I think you all would like to. And especially if you have little children, let them get involved as much as they can so that they can learn to do it with you. There's, like, my mom had us do the green beans. We were the ones that would pick them and do that. Now, if you can't have a garden and you have a flower bed, you can plant things in your flower bed to eat. I was showing yesterday, Anya, about my potatoes. I had 50 pounds of potatoes this year. Well, we picked these back in latter part of September, 1st of October, and now they're starting to sprout. And when I want to use these, I just knock the sprouts off and use them. But I am going to keep a couple of these because next month I'm going to plant them. And I will need, we call these eyes, at least in our family we did. And there's lots of little eyes starting to come on this one. So I will cut this like this and sit this part in the ground and cover it with dirt. And usually I have like a little hill and put this in the middle of the hill. And then I will cut again another segment out. So I'll get 3 plants out of this one.
So I'm not sure if anyone can see it.
Okay.
And I can try to explain it, but you correct me if I'm wrong. But if you guys can see here, the eyes that Carolyn was talking about are the indentations where the potatoes starting to sprout. And so what you were just saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would cut the potato 3 ways.
Yeah, you want more than one eye
Okay.
on that.
Oh, okay. So you want to cut it in a way that you have several eyes for sprouting.
Yes.
And then you have 3 parts of the potato, and you can plant them as individual plants
Yeah.
with the sprout sticking up, because
Yeah.
then they give rise to a new plant.
I tried something new this year. My son-in-law gave me 12 old tires. You know, they're hard to get rid of, tires are. And I stacked 2, 3 on top of each other. And I put dirt up to the second one about halfway. So I have 1 tire full of dirt, put another tire on and put him almost full of dirt. And then I put my potato in the middle of that tire. And then when it started growing, I put the other tire on top of it. And the reason I did that is the heat from the tires helped the potatoes to grow. And if you can get quite a few potatoes from one plant and they grow down. I don't know if all of you have ever seen a plant of potatoes and pull it up and see what's underneath it.
Sounds like it'd be easier to harvest.
Yes,
Well,
well,
when we got
and
the tractor to do it.
when I do, like I was telling Tanya yesterday, when we would do peas and it was time to pick the peas, I would always go to the potatoes and get little potatoes because I like to cream the potatoes and the peas, and I could mix them that way. And then leave the rest.
Okay, I have a quick question about the tire. Did you, how did you do that again? Did you plant potato in the tire or did you surround the potato plant with the tires?
No, I took, well, let's say this is a tire right here.
Okay.
And I filled it full of dirt. And then I put another tire on top and filled it with some dirt as well. And then I put it in the middle. I put my potato in the middle of the tire. And that way the heat from the tires kept it warm. And because in March, it's still a little cold. And then when it started growing, I added another tire on top and I put more dirt in that tire and it kept growing. So now I have 3 tires and underneath is where my potatoes are growing because they're going to grow down. I've also planted potatoes in my flower garden. I have had one of the biggest potatoes. I mean, it was huge that I got out of my flower garden.
Okay.
And I got carrots planted now. I planted carrots last fall. And I see that I've got, they're starting, the tops of them are starting to come up. They're about 2-3 inches, some of them. And so they're going to be a nice harvest. I can probably have that by June. And I can plant another amount of them. But you can do that with flower bed too.
That's interesting. I didn't know that was possible. Thank you.
So are there any questions from anyone? And thank you to Galaxy who's just joining us. We are recording the session, so the goal is to post it on the platform, the Facebook platform, Kingdom Networking. Let's see, does anyone have any additional questions at this time?
I don't know if I missed it because I came in a little bit later, but I was just curious, do you do any fermenting in your cans? When you can?
I'm trying to understand what you mean. You mean to put it in there and let it decay?
Yeah. Basically, so like when you
Sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I personally haven't done any sauerkrauting. I know people that do it. They got a crock and it does take time, you know, to do it right and stuff. I have pickled onions before and done some pickling, but that's only in my jars. I haven't done sauerkraut, making sauerkraut.
If you were to make the sauerkraut, could you, because I'm making some sauerkraut right now on my my countertop. Can you can it or no? Would it get
Well,
destroyed? The
I
bacteria, the reason why you do it is to get the proper bacteria for your gut anyways. I'm wondering.
Yeah, here it talks about sauerkraut. And here it's got it for 15 minutes in boiling water. I guess after you do your sauerkraut, you would bring it to a boil, and then you would boil it for 15 minutes, and that should seal your lids, and then you would take it out. So it does say that you can do that. But you don't pressure cooker the sauerkraut. It has to be a boiling water bath.
Okay.
So yeah, you can do that. I did try it once, but mine just didn't do what I really wanted it to do. It was okay, but I have a friend, and oh my goodness, he makes it delicious. So some people have a knack, and I didn't have it.
And Karen, you had a question?
Hi, thanks, Tanya. Sorry, my volume is not that great, so if you can't hear me clearly, I'll just type it. So if I wanted to start canning, I'm very new at this. I did try it once, and I don't think I did too well. I think it's Miss Carolyn, right? Miss Carolyn?
Yes.
Carol? What's one or two items other than jams do you suggest that I try as a beginner? Because I know jams are kind of sweet. So if I wanted to start canning and just start more on the healthier side, and definitely not the string beans, is there anything that you would suggest?
Well, there's applesauce. Applesauce is
Okay.
really easy. What I do with my apples, like I said on this one, is I cut it in half in fourths and take the middle out and put it in a pan. I have a nice pan that has a nice heavy bottom on it. And I cook the apples down. Then I put them inside of my blender and just blended them up. Now, if you don't want the skins in there, you can use a colander like this to put them in and go like this. And that will take the pulp will come through, the skins will stay on top. I mean, and then you can can it. And that's not too hard to do. Peaches aren't too hard to can either. Fruits are easier to can. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but those are easier things to can than vegetables.
It sure did. Thanks so much.
And Melissa had a question. I guess what's the average cost of the minimum amount of canning equipment you would need to get started?
Well, like, just depends on where you go get it. I know my canner cost over $50 because I wanted to get a good canner.
Which one? The pressure or
The pressure cooker.
Okay.
The pressure cooker here. Is this the one? Because I wanted to get a good one. And a water bath one, I don't think it cost around $20, but that
Yes.
was a long time ago.
Actually still does.
No, does
I
it?
went to Walmart because I was
Oh.
trying to get one about a year ago. So it's about $20 at Walmart. And then Karen, you're showing us the forceps to pick up the hot jars.
Yeah.
Walmart has a kit.
Yes.
I got the kit. It comes with something like this, and it comes with like other like tools to help you with your canning process. I made like a set of 10 pieces or something for $12. You can get a total of maybe you have some jars here.
Yes, jars are,
I think
jars
it's 12
cost
jars.
more.
Yeah, with lids. I got one for I think it's 12.
Yeah, like this.
I got me a set like that for under $10 at Target.
Yeah, now these are pint.
Oh, the
Quart-
pints, yeah.
Quarts will cost more. but you can use the rings over and over, and you can use the jars over and over. And you can go to a yard sale maybe, and that's where I've got a lot of my my rings and my jars from yard sales. Goodwill and them usually have, well, they used to have them like for 50 cents a jar. And I could do better at a yard sale or an estate sale, if you have those where you live. But I bought these because I was having a hard time getting the lids. And I thought I might need them, but then we found the lids. And so I'll just keep these, and then I can use them. But I personally don't make jams and jellies. What I do is I will take my berries. I go blackberry picking or raspberry picking, and I can put them in my juicer, or I can heat them up on the stove and run them through my sieve, and then I can just can it. But I don't use sugar in my applesauce. I just use it plain, just like the apple is. But I did want to tell you about honey. I have a friend that has bees. Now I've had this little jar of honey going on 2 years. Honey you can keep for almost 40 years. And it may turn dark in color, but it's still good. So I use honey sometimes in my processing, more so than sugar.
So you can use honey to sweeten your jams instead of sugar.
You can, but like I said, with my apples and when I do peaches, I like to use pineapple juice for 2 reasons. It will give it a sweeter flavor, the pineapple juice, plus it will keep it from turning color.
I have a question. Do you always need salt to can, like canning salt, or can you can without salt?
Well, you probably can, but it would not be that great. I don't think when it
It's a
came out.
preservative.
But you don't have to put in as much as it says.
Gotcha.
And I usually don't put in a tablespoon into this little thingy. I just put maybe a teaspoon in my green beans. I don't know, did I answer your questions okay?
Oh, any tips on making jams without sugar?
Well, I would say you just get a recipe and try it. All you can do is flop, and if so, you can just eat it. You don't have to can it. I have experimented on things that haven't turned out too good, but I have ate the process instead of canning it. It was okay. And if I am gonna try to go on and can it like I did, I made some squash. One of my favorite squash is called sweetmeat squash. And I made so much of it, I just canned it, and it turned out okay. But now I still have in my pantry the potatoes, like I said, I can still use them for a couple more months. And squash, I still have squash from last fall, and onions from the garden. So if you have a cool, dark place, you can keep a lot of this food without doing anything to it.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. So it seems like you have a garden to basically get food from and store your food in there. But for some of us don't have gardens and food can be pretty pricey. So do you have any recommendations about where we can get, I guess, affordable or cheap fresh food so we can on a budget?
Do you have farmers market where you are?
No.
See that? Because you want to get as fresh as you can. And if you could go to a farmer's market, or if you could knew somebody in the country that had some, but I know when you live in town, it's a little difficult because you don't know how long they've had that lettuce or kale or whatever beets in the store. How long has it been since it has been picked? I myself, I like beets and beet tops and kale and stuff like that. I usually eat up my kale so quick I don't have time to can it. I do a lot of juicing with apples and carrots. And so if you go to where they have organic grown vegetables and you want to can, maybe those would be better. Usually they're fresher and they don't have all the pesticides. I know they probably still have something like that on them, but it's not as where they're not marked that these are organic.
Another thing I was thinking about, one thing for those of us who don't have gardens, if you can, try Googling community gardens near you, or even CSAs, which are community sponsored agriculture, because you may actually, okay, so with a community garden, that'll give you an opportunity to plant your own food. Or maybe if you can partner with someone that has a plot to plant food there. Another thing is with the community sponsored agriculture, those are local farms in the area that you can actually, if you're in the United States, or even other places, I'm not sure, but you can actually potentially purchase fresh organic food from them at a lower cost. And interestingly enough, and I was learning this when I was actually just interning on a farm, was that if people have, let's say people who have low income food stamps, they can actually purchase a share of the farm and get that fresh crop that you harvest sent straight to their house once a week. And some of them would can that food, or they would use their food stamps to buy like starts of plants so they can plant in their backyard. So I'm realizing there's actually a lot of options with this, but the main thing is we just have to have faith and step out on faith, like Peter stepped out on the boat to walk to Jesus and just start, like Carolyn was saying, just start, get in your kitchen and start, do something. And that's the only way to learn. I'm learning, so not easy, but just jump in and do something, and the Lord will provide. Pray first, of course, like Carolyn mentioned earlier today.
Yeah, I pray all through my canning.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anybody to get sick with what I can. And there is that strong possibility when you do your own canning is, did I sterilize correctly? Did I clean my fruits proper and so on? But it takes a lot of water when you're canning because you're washing your stuff constantly. You're using all this water in the canner and in your jars. So it could be more expensive to do your own canning than just go to the store and get stuff off the shelf. I have a friend that cans her own pinto beans. She buys the beans and takes them home and cans them. The reason she does that is when she wants to make a haystack or something, she just opens a can of beans, heats them up and puts it on, or make chili or whatever.
And while canning, definitely, I would love to get to the level of Carolyn canning, like, fresh food. But just in case you're not able to get to that right away, it still doesn't hurt to have a couple of cans from the store on hand if you're like prepping that are low sodium. Just in case, you just never know. Like with all the stores when they shut down here or there, it's good to have something on hand just in case you aren't able to get to that, canning yet. And of course a can opener. So that's important.
And that's why I can more than I freeze, is because sometimes where I live, my electricity will go off. And in the future, if it goes off for any length of time, I do have a can't think what it is now, that generator that I can plug in my freezer, but you got to have gas to do that. And so you never know what the future holds. So I just can.
Any other questions? No? Let me see. Nothing else in the chat. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Carolyn.
Welcome.
for taking the time out of your busy schedule to, share with us your many years of expertise in canning and the tips. It was definitely a blessing to hear, your experience and, all the tools of the trade that you showed us. And, on the behalf of Kingdom Network, I just want to say thank you
Welcome.
for your time and your talents this evening. And maybe in the future, maybe we can do this again when you have time.
Well, maybe this summer when we're ready to can,
Oh,
you can
yes.
come and do it with me.
I really want to learn how to do this. And this is super important.
Okay.
And I got my cans too and my lids. So I'm ready to
Okay.
go. What else was I gonna say? So that's pretty much what we have for this evening. And actually tomorrow, can you close us out with prayer?
All right, sorry about that. I got kicked out of the meeting, but yeah, I can do that.
Good. Oh, okay.
All right. Bow your heads and close your eyes. Father in heaven, thank you for this wonderful session today. Thank you for everything that we have learned. I pray that we will not let this knowledge go to waste, but we will use it, Lord, that we would use it to not only help ourselves, but we'll use it to help our community. And God, I just pray that as we go along our nights, that you would keep us safe and that you would bring us into a new day and refreshed and ready to work. In Jesus' name I do pray, amen.
Amen. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all.
Nice to meet you all.
We appreciate
Night.
you all. Thank you for coming tonight. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.